It's thinking. It says I'm live. Okay, I am live. All right, so I don't know if I'm going to have anybody joining me in on the actual live portion or not. But this is our new normal of combination class. One person's watching. So this is a new experience for all of us, probably. And so, I'm getting lots of you guys on. This is awesome. So, we're up to 4 of us. So we're gonna. Pastor's bugging me.
Put a sign on the door.
He said he was gonna leave me alone. So we're just gonna kind of dive in and do what we always do, just from afar. And so hopefully you all have your packets of information that we sent you. And I know they're all off the table. Pastor's telling me this. I know they're all off the table, but hopefully you have them like with you in front of you as you're watching this so that you can kind of do this in real time with me.
Make sure you sharpen your scissors.
Ignore him. He's supposed to not be here. So I'll just be reading what we normally would read out of the Bible. So yay for you. You don't have to read it out loud. And if you have a Bible at home, you can follow along or you can pull up a version of it on whatever device you're using. If you can, multi-screen. You guys are probably better at that than I am. And so I gave you the list of readings in the packet so that you kind of know what we're doing and where you can find things. And then I'll have my notebook here as a demonstration. And and I have the blank copies to kind of show you too what you need to do. So hopefully this will all work out kind of okay. And the best thing is that this will be up afterwards. So if it goes too fast or if you miss something, you can go back and rewatch it and rewrite it in how you need to. And I don't have to sit here writing a bajillion things up on the chalkboard and that whole deal. So, okay. So today we're going to be diving back into talking about Elijah and King Ahab, which those were the 2 main people we ended with our class 2 weeks ago. So I know that was a while ago. But if you remember, and you can even kind of look back in your book, we had our little chart about Elijah. Oh, this is all backwards. Pastor told me it was going to look normal. But so you're going to have your chart about Elijah. My apologies that it's backwards. I'm going to have to figure out if I can change that at some point. And remember that Elijah was the one who he's the prophet. He was fed by the ravens, helped the widow, he, a prophet of God, and he was telling King Ahab about how he had sinned. And on our other chart about King Ahab, we had that he, was causing the Israelites to sin by worshiping idols. He built a giant temple for Baal, the false god, and married, the evil idol worshiper Jezebel. And he was blaming Elijah for everything that was going wrong, including the drought that happened in the region. So that's where we left off with Ahab and Elijah. So I'm going to be reading what comes next from 1 Kings chapter 18, verses 20 to 40. That's where we're at in the story right now. So the story goes like this. So Ahab sent to all the people of Israel and gathered the prophets together at Mount Carmel. And Elijah came near to all the people and said, "How long will you go limping between 2 different opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal, then follow him." And the people did not answer him a word. Then Elijah said to the people, "I, even I only, am left a prophet of the Lord, but Baal's prophets are 450 men. Let 2 bulls be given to us, and let them choose 1 bull for themselves, and cut it in pieces, and lay it on the wood, but put no fire to it. And I will prepare the other bull, and lay it on the wood, and put no fire to it. And you call upon the name of your God, and I will call upon the name of the Lord. And the God who answers by fire, he is God. And all the people answered, It is well spoken. Then Elijah said to the prophets of Baal, Choose for yourself one bull and prepare it first. For you are many, and call upon the name of your God, but put no fire to it. And they took the bull that was given them, and they prepared it and called upon the name of Baal from morning until noon, saying, O Baal, answer us. But there was no voice, and no one answered. And they limped around the altar that they had made. And at noon Elijah mocked them, saying, Cry aloud, for he is a god. Either he is musing, or he is relieving himself, or he is on a journey, or perhaps he is asleep and must be awakened. And they cried aloud and cut themselves after their custom with swords and lances until the blood gushed out upon them. And as midday passed, they raved on until the time of the offering of the oblation. But there was no voice, no one answered, no one paid attention. So far in this story, what we have is Elijah is challenging the Israelites who are worshiping Baal and saying, let's see whose God is actually the real God. We're each going to take a bull, we're each going to put it on an altar, and we're not going to light it on fire. We're going to call on God, or either the real God or Baal, to send fire to receive this offering that we put. So right now it's the altar of the prophets of Baal's turn, and so they put their bull up on, and they've been praying all day to Baal to send fire onto their offering, and nothing's happening. And Elijah's kind of making fun of them and saying maybe he's asleep. So continuing on, it says, Then Elijah said to all the people, Come near to me. And all the people came near to him, and he repaired the altar of the Lord that had been thrown down. Elijah took 12 stones, according to the number of the tribes of the sons of Jacob, to whom the word of the Lord came, saying, Israel shall be your name. And with the stones he built an altar in the name of the Lord. And he made a trench about the altar, as great as would contain 2 seahs of seed. And he put the wood in order, and cut the bull in pieces, and laid it on the wood. And he said, Fill 4 jars with water, and pour it on the burnt offering and on the wood. And he said, Do it a second time. And they did it a second time. And he said, Do it a third time. And they did it a third time. And the water ran around the altar and filled the trench also with water. So this is Elijah's turn to prove about the real God. And he is not just putting a bull up on the altar. He is then covering his altar with water, not just once, but 3 different times, tons and tons of water, to kind of prove his point here. And so that's what he's done to prepare his altar. And so it says, At the time of the offering of the oblation, Elijah the prophet came near and said, O Lord, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known this day that you are God in Israel, and that I am your servant, and that I have done all these things at your word. Answer me, O Lord, answer me, that this people may know that you, O Lord, are God, and that you have turned their hearts back. Then the fire of the Lord fell and consumed the burnt offering, and the wood, and the stones, and the dust, and licked up the water that was in the trench. And when all the people saw it, they fell on their faces and said, The Lord, he is God, the Lord, he is God. And Elijah said to them, Seize the prophets of Baal, let not one of them escape. And they seized them, and Elijah brought them down to the brook Kishon and slaughtered them there. So we can see in our story that the altar that they covered with water, when they prayed to God, the real God, God sent down fire, and it didn't just destroy the bull that they had laid on the altar. It destroyed the stones and the water, and everything around it was just destroyed. And people realized, okay, that's the real God, not Baal. So that's our first story. We're doing 2 today. Our first story it was actually finishing up what we were trying to do the last time we were together. So for the first one, you need, again, I apologize. This looks backwards to me. Maybe it doesn't look backwards to you. I don't know. So you're going to need this first worksheet, but you're just going to need this square. And you don't have to cut it out right now. You can just take it and you can do your writing on it right now. We're not doing anything with the start. So all you're going to need is just that square up here. And so you're going to see that there's 2 sides. There's one that says Prophets of Baal altar, and then there's going to be Elijah's altar. And if you got a pen handy or a pencil handy, use it now. I'll tell you what to write on there. I will hold up my example. It may be backwards, so I don't know. But on Baal's side, you're going to write, the people cried and prayed to Baal all day to send fire, but there was no answer. So I'm going to hold this up here for a little bit. Like, again, you might have to read backwards or take a mirror and read it. Get creative. So I'm going to hold this up for just a little bit. And again, I'll say it again. The people cried and prayed to Baal all day to send fire, but there was no answer. And if you have your crayons and stuff, you can color an altar, and basically just kind of, if you want to get creative and draw a bull on top of it, like, a male cow, be my guest. I'm not that creative. But they didn't really have anything else on their altar. On the other side, when you're drawing your altar, and we leave it empty because Baal never sent any fire. On the other side, on Elijah's side, we know that God sent fire on it. So you can color a big, flaming blaze on top of your altar. And I even added some water kind of trickling down it and around it to talk about how they layered it with different levels of water. So hopefully you kind of got what was on the Baal side. If you didn't remember, you can always come back and catch it later. And, listen to me on repeat as much as you want. That might be annoying, but it is what it is. So on the Elijah side, you're going to write, Elijah covered his altar with water before praying. Oh, I didn't finish that sentence. Elijah covered his altar with water before praying to God. That's your first sentence. Then it says, God sent down fire that destroyed the whole altar, including all the water. I need to fix it because mine says who and not whole. But again, I'll hold that up there because I can't find a pen right now. But who should say whole? I found a pen. Okay, I'll fix it and I'll read it one more time. I promise, I just have allergies. Don't panic when I'm coughing. Okay. So again, the Elijah side says, Elijah covered his altar with water before praying to God. God sent down fire that destroyed the whole altar, including all the water. So that's what you have on that side. You can see I don't have any special title on my page for this one because it kind of gives you a title right in the middle of this. So like I said, you don't have to do it now, but this is the part you're going to cut out and you're going to put in your journal behind the last things we did. Everyone with me so far? I hope so. I can't tell because I don't think we got any chat thing going. If you feel like chatting me up, that's fine. I do this on Facebook all the time, but I've never done this really on YouTube before. So this is a new experience. Okay, so that's our first story for the day, a wrap up of kind of what we didn't get done last time. The next story we're going to do is Naboth's vineyard. And so again, we kind of have these same characters of King Ahab and Queen Jezebel and Elijah, all kind of playing into this story. Not so much Elijah. He's there a little bit, but it's more about King Ahab and Jezebel. And so for that one, we're going to end up using the sheet that looks like this. We're going to end up putting these things in order. And so even if you don't want to worry about cutting and pasting in the moment, as we go through the story and as I give you the answers, if you just want to even write the numbers next to them, so you just know which one goes on which spot, that's fine. But that's going to be a pretty easy one to get into your books. So this one has a little bit of reading from me, so you get a little story time again. So the first part comes from 1 Kings chapter 21. If you do have your Bible with you, you'll see that it's labeled Naboth's Vineyard. And so I'm just going to start reading that one. And it goes like this. Now Naboth the Jezreelite had a vineyard in Jezreel beside the palace of Ahab, king of Samaria. And for those of you, in case you don't know, a vineyard is where you grow grapes. And after this, Ahab said to Naboth, "Give me your vineyard, that I may have it for a vegetable garden, because it is near my house, and I will give you a better vineyard for it. Or if it seems good to you, I will give you its value in money." But Naboth said to Ahab, "The Lord forbid that I should give you the inheritance of my fathers." And Ahab went into his house vexed and sullen because of what Naboth the Jezreelite had said to him. For he had said, "I will not give you the inheritance of my fathers." And he lay down on his bed and turned away his face and would eat no food. So right now we have Naboth, working out in his vineyard. And King Ahab comes along and says, "Yeah, I'd really like to get that from you. You should give it to me. Or you should let me buy it because it's really close to my house and I want it for a vegetable garden." And Naboth says, "No, this is the land that I was given as an inheritance and I'm going to keep it." So then it says, so Ahab kind of goes to his room and pouts about it. But Jezebel, his wife, came to him and said to him, "Why is your spirit so vexed that you eat no food?" And he said to her, "Because I spoke to Naboth the Jezreelite and said to him, 'Give me your vineyard for money, or else, if it please you, I will give you another vineyard for it.' And he answered, 'I will not give you my vineyard.' And Jezebel his wife said to him, 'Do you now govern Israel? Arise and eat bread, and let your heart be cheerful. I will give you the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite.'" So Jezebel comes in to check on her husband, King Ahab, and asks him why he's so upset. And he tells her because Naboth won't let him have the vineyard. And she's like, "You're in charge of Israel. Don't worry, I'll get it for you." So she wrote letters in Ahab's name and sealed them with his seal, and she sent the letters to the elders and the leaders who lived with Naboth in his city. And she wrote in the letters, "Proclaim a fast and set Naboth at the head of the people, and set 2 worthless men opposite him, and let them bring a charge against him, saying, 'You have cursed God and the king.' Then take him out and stone him to death." And the men of his city, the elders and the leaders who lived in his city, did as Jezebel had sent word to them, as it was written in the letters that she had sent to them. They proclaimed a fast and set Naboth at the head of the table. And the 2 worthless men came in and sat opposite him. And the worthless men brought a charge against Naboth in the presence of the people, saying, "Naboth cursed God and the king." So they took him outside the city and stoned him to death with stones. Then they sent to Jezebel, saying, "Naboth has been stoned. He is dead." So Jezebel's big plan was she sent a letter using the king's name, telling people to basically say to Naboth that he had wronged the king and that he was a criminal and he needed to be taken outside of the city and stoned to death and died. But stonings happened often back then, and they basically just took people out, threw them sometimes in a pit, and threw stones at them until they died. As soon as Jezebel heard that Naboth had been stoned and was dead, Jezebel said to Ahab, "Arise, take possession of the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite, which he refused to give you for money, for Naboth is not alive, but dead." And as soon as Ahab heard that Naboth was dead, Ahab arose to go down to the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite to take possession of it. So that was her grand solution. Just kill off Naboth, and then you can have it. And so that's what happened in this story. I don't know if any of you are actually commenting in on these questions. No, the Bible's not a lie. The Bible's true. So that's what we got going on our chat. Awesome. So that's what's happening in our story so far, is that we're having people killed off so that the king can have a vineyard. Now we're going to jump ahead a little bit into 1 Kings chapter 22. to get a little more of the story because, oh wait, no, just kidding. I'm going to keep going with the story where I was. So, then the word of the Lord came to Elijah the Tishbite, saying, Arise, go down to meet Ahab, king of Israel, who is in Samaria. Behold, he is in the vineyard of Naboth, where he has gone to take possession. And you shall say to him, Thus says the Lord, Have you killed and also taken possession? And you shall say to him, Thus says the Lord, In the place where dogs licked up the blood of Naboth, shall dogs lick your own blood. Okay, hold on a minute. I don't know how to get rid of that. Please ignore everybody on the chat because we have people like crashing our party here. So it says, Ahab said to Elijah, Have you found me, O my enemy? He answered, I have found you because you have sold yourself to do what is evil in the sight of the Lord. Behold, I will bring disaster upon you. I will utterly burn you up and will cut off from Ahab every male, bond and free in Israel. And I will make your house like the house of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, and like the house of Baasha the son of Ahijah, for the anger to which you have provoked me, and because you have made Israel to sin. And of Jezebel the Lord also said, The dogs shall eat Jezebel within the walls of Jezreel. Anyone belonging to Ahab who dies in the city the dogs shall eat, and anyone of his who dies in the open country the birds of the heavens shall eat. So, Elijah basically comes to Ahab and to and says to him, what you're doing is wrong, and what you did was wrong, and your death is going to be a horrible death because of this. So, we're going to jump ahead and actually see where those predictions do come true. And so I'm going to jump to 1 Kings 22 and verses 29 to 40. So the king of Israel and Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, went up to Ramoth Gilead, and the king of Israel said to Jehoshaphat, I will disguise myself and go into battle, but you wear your robes. And the king of Israel disguised himself and went into battle. Now the king of Syria had commanded the 32 captains of his chariots, fight with neither small nor great, but only with the king of Israel. And when the captains of the chariots saw Jehoshaphat, they said, It is surely the king of Israel. So they turned to fight against him, and Jehoshaphat cried out. And when the captains of the chariots saw that it was not the king of Israel, they turned back from pursuing him. But a certain man drew his bow at random and struck the king of Israel between the scale armor and the breastplate. Therefore he said to the driver of his chariot, Turn around and carry me out of the battle, for I am wounded. And the battle continued that day, and the king was propped up in his chariot facing the Syrians until the evening he died, and the blood of the wound flowed into the bottom of the chariot. And about sunset a cry went through the army, every man to his city, and every man to his country. So the king died and was brought to Samaria, and they buried the king in Samaria. And they washed the chariot by the pool of Samaria, and the dogs licked up his blood. And so we see there that King Ahab had his death met just like it was predicted that he would. And then we're going to jump ahead to 2 Kings 9:30 to 37. When Jehu came to Jezreel, Jezebel heard of it, and she painted her eyes and adorned her head and looked out the window. And as Jehu entered the gate, she said, Is it peace, you Zimri, murderer of your master? And he lifted up his face to the window and said, Who is on my side? Who? 2 or 3 eunuchs looked out at him. He said, Throw her down. So they threw her down, and some of her blood splattered on the wall and on the horses, and they trampled on her. Then he went in and ate and drank, and he said, See now to this cursed woman and bury her, for she is a king's daughter. But they went to bury her. They found no more of her than the skull and the feet and the palms of her hands. When they came back and told him, he said, This is the word of the Lord, which he spoke by his servant Elijah the Tishbite. In the territory of Jezreel the dogs shall eat the flesh of Jezebel, and the corpse of Jezebel shall be as dung on the face of the field in the territory of Jezreel, so that no one can say this is Jezebel. And so again, we see that Jezebel met her death just like Elijah predicted in the earlier reading. So you're going to need this worksheet for this one. We're just going to basically put the story in order. So we know that the first thing that happened in the story of Naboth's vineyard is that King Ahab wanted Naboth's vineyard. That's how our story starts. And so you're going to need that. It's going to be your first one. So you'll cut that out and make it number 1. And again, like I said, you can just put a number 1 by it so that you know that that's the order you'll need it in. Thing number 2 is Naboth would not sell his vineyard to King Ahab. And so that one's up here. So you'll want a number 2 by that one. And eventually then you can move it over to be number 2 over here. Thing number 3, Jezebel plots to have Naboth killed. So this 4th one down here will be your 3rd one. And thing number 4 will be God sent Elijah to tell Ahab a message, which is right up here. This will be your 4th one. And your final one will be that Ahab and Jezebel died horrible deaths as the Lord predicted. So it should be, I got to think about these numbers now. It'll be up here. This would be the 2nd one. This is the 4th one. So 2, 4, 1, 3, and 5. And so that is the order that you'll need. And when you put it in your notebook, you'll have it as so, and you can label it Naboth's Vineyard. So as you can see, because we're online, we get done with class kind of a lot quicker this way. So those are the 2 things that you'll need. You'll need both the altar one and just that timeline. You can, cut and paste them in your books as you have time. And other than that, next week it'll be a little more. You'll want to have your crayons like super ready, and we'll be doing some writing under some flaps. And if you want to even have those flaps cut in there ahead of time, that's great and awesome. Or like I said, you can come back and you can watch them after the fact as well. So I hope you somewhat can enjoy the fact that we're doing it this way. We're trying to keep things somewhat normal. And I'm going to figure out how next time not to have the chat turned on, because we got a ton of trolls trolling on our thing, talking about things that are not even related to this. So that's just the way it is. So if anything, I might have to redo this and send out a better link for you guys later. Hopefully I don't have to, because this is a lot of talking. I don't want to talk for half an hour again. So I hope you all can enjoy your time. I'll check back in with you on April 1st, no fooling. And like I said, there'll be a little bit more work that time, but hopefully this makes it a little simpler for everyone as well, when we're not having to stop and wait and do all the crazy things that we do in a normal classroom. So enjoy your night.